The slap echoed through the wedding hall like a gunshot, sharp and final, silencing the string quartet mid-note. Emily's cheek burned, her mother's handprint a searing mark of betrayal, as gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah, standing beside her, froze, her hand tightening around Emily's, a lifeline in the storm of humiliation. It was supposed to be a day of joy. Emily's younger sister, Lily, radiant in her white gown, marrying her high school sweetheart Tom, in a charming vineyard in Napa Valley. The golden California sun bathed the venue in warmth, fairy lights twinkling against the evening sky, and laughter had filled the air just moments ago. Emily, 28, had stood proudly in her navy blazer, her chestnut hair catching the light, feeling the weight of her secret lift as she held Sarah's hand, ready to face the world. Sarah, 30, her short black hair framing her sharp jawline, had whispered, "We're doing this together," her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her brown eyes. They'd agreed today at Lily's wedding they'd come out as a couple, no longer hiding their love. But Emily's mother, Diane, had other plans. Her face, usually composed with Midwestern stoicism, twisted into rage when she saw their joined hands during the reception. "You're ruining your sister's day," she hissed, her voice low but venomous, before her hand struck Emily's face. The crowd parted like a sea, eyes wide, some with pity, others with judgment. Lily, the bride, stood at the center of the dance floor, her bouquet trembling in her hands, tears streaming down her face as she looked at her sister, then her mother, caught in a moment that would fracture their family forever. Emily's heart pounded, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. She'd spent years bracing for this, years of hiding who she was to keep the peace in their small-town Ohio family. Growing up, she'd been the perfect daughter, straight-A student, debate team captain, always smiling for the Christmas card photos. But beneath the surface, she'd known since she was 16 that she loved women, a truth she buried under her mother's expectations and her father's quiet indifference. Meeting Sarah 2 years ago had changed everything. Sarah, a graphic designer with a laugh that could light up a room, had walked into Emily's life at a coffee shop in San Francisco, spilling her latte and her heart in the same clumsy moment. Their love had grown quietly, fiercely, in stolen moments and late-night talks, until hiding it felt like betraying themselves. Now, standing in the wreckage of that slap, Emily felt Sarah's thumb brush against her knuckles, grounding her. "Don't let her win," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. Emily straightened, her green eyes locking onto her mother's. "I'm not ashamed," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I love her." The words hung in the air, a declaration and a challenge. Diane's face paled, her hands shaking as she turned away, muttering about disgrace. Lily, still frozen, let out a sob, her veil catching the light like a halo. The reception stumbled forward, guests pretending not to stare as they sipped their wine. Emily and Sarah retreated to a corner, their hands still clasped, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. "I didn't think it would hurt this much," Emily admitted, her voice cracking. Sarah pulled her close, her cream dress brushing against Emily's blazer. "We knew it wouldn't be easy," she said softly, "but we're here. Together." Emily nodded, but her eyes drifted to Lily, who was now dancing with Tom, her smile forced. Guilt gnawed at Emily. She hadn't meant to steal her sister's spotlight, but she couldn't keep lying. As the night wore on, Emily's father, Robert, approached them, his tie loosened, his face weary. He'd always been a man of few words, a retired mechanic who preferred fixing cars to navigating family drama. "Your mom. She needs time," he said, his voice gruff. "But you're still my daughter." It wasn't much, but it was enough to make Emily's throat tighten. She hugged him, feeling the familiar roughness of his flannel shirt, a small anchor in the chaos. By the time the cake was cut, the tension had simmered into an uneasy truce. Emily and Sarah stayed, determined not to be driven away. They danced together, slow and deliberate, under the string lights, their movements a quiet rebellion. Guests watched, some smiling, others whispering, but Emily didn't care. Sarah's hand on her waist, her breath warm against her cheek, was all that mattered. "We're going to be okay," Sarah murmured, and for the first time that night Emily believed it. But the night wasn't over. As the guests began to leave, Lily pulled Emily aside, her eyes red but steady. "I didn't know," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emily's heart sank, wanted to protect Lily, to keep her wedding day perfect, but now she saw the cost of her silence. I was scared, Emily admitted. I didn't want to lose you. Lily hugged her tightly, her wedding dress rustling. You're my sister, she whispered. You'll never lose me. As Emily and Sarah drove back to their San Francisco apartment that night, the weight of the day settled over them. The city lights blurred through the car window, and Emily rested her head on Sarah's shoulder. They'd faced the storm and come out stronger, but the road ahead was uncertain. Diane's rejection stung, and the family they'd once known might never be the same. Yet, in the quiet of the car with Sarah's hand in hers, Emily felt a spark of hope. They'd chosen love, and that was a start. The weeks after the wedding were a tightrope walk. Emily woke each morning to the echo of her mother's slap, the memory as vivid as the bruise that had faded from her cheek. She and Sarah tried to settle back into their routine in San Francisco, but the air felt heavier, charged with unspoken fears. Their apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in the Mission District, had always been their sanctuary. The walls were lined with Sarah's colorful sketches and Emily's neatly organized bookshelves, a blend of their personalities. But now, every phone call from Ohio made Emily flinch, expecting another argument. Diane hadn't spoken to her since the wedding, and Robert's brief text, "Hope you're okay," or "Call if you need me," felt like lifelines thrown across a chasm. Lily, true to her word, called often, her voice a mix of guilt and determination. "Mom's stubborn, but she'll come around," she said, though Emily heard the doubt beneath her optimism. At work, Emily threw herself into her role as a high school English teacher, grading essays and planning lessons on Whitman and Woolf. Her students, a mix of curious and restless teens, gave her purpose, but even they noticed her distraction. "Miss Carter, you okay?" one asked after she stared out the window too long during class. She forced a smile, nodding, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the moment she'd said, "I love her," and the silence that followed. Sarah, meanwhile, was a rock, though Emily saw the strain in her eyes. Her freelance design projects kept her up late, her laptop glowing in the dark as she sketched logos and layouts. One night, Emily found her on the couch, staring at a blank screen. "I keep thinking about what your mom said," Sarah admitted, her voice low. "That we're a disgrace. It's stupid, but it hurts." Emily sat beside her, pulling her close. "She's wrong," she said fiercely. "You're the best thing in my life." Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes, and Emily felt a pang of fear. What if the world's judgment wore them down? The tension broke one rainy Saturday when Lily called, her voice urgent. "Mom's coming to visit you," she said. She booked a flight for next week. Emily's stomach dropped. Diane in San Francisco? The woman who'd slapped her for loving Sarah? "Why?" Emily asked, her voice tight. Lily hesitated. She didn't say. "But she's been different, quiet. I think she's struggling," Emily told Sarah, expecting her to bristle, but Sarah's face softened. "Maybe this is her trying," she said. "We should give her a chance." Emily wasn't so sure. Diane had always been the pillar of their family, a nurse who'd raised two daughters with fierce discipline and high expectations. Her disapproval wasn't just personal, it was a wall, built from years of small-town values and church sermons. Still, Emily agreed, if only to prove she wasn't the one running. When Diane arrived, the air in their apartment crackled with tension. She stood stiffly in the doorway, her graying hair pulled back, her suitcase clutched like a shield. "I'm here to talk," she said, her voice clipped. Emily nodded, her throat tight, and Sarah offered a cautious smile, setting out coffee. The three sat at the small kitchen table, the silence heavy. Emily braced for another lecture, but Diane's eyes were different, tired, almost haunted. "I was wrong to hit you," Diane said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was angry, scared. I didn't know how to handle it." Emily blinked, stunned. An apology from her mother was as rare as snow in San Francisco. "But I don't understand," Diane continued, her hands twisting together. "I don't understand how you can choose this." The word choose stung, and Emily felt Sarah tense beside her. "It's not a choice, Mom," Emily said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "It's who I am, who we are." Diane's eyes flickered to Sarah, then back to Emily. "I raised you to be different," she said, her voice cracking. "To be like Lily, To have a family. Sarah leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. We are a family, Diane. Maybe not the one you pictured, but it's real. The words hung in the air, and for the first time, Emily saw her mother falter, her certainty crumbling. The conversation stretched into the evening, raw and halting. Diane spoke of her fears losing her daughters, facing judgment from her church, failing as a mother. Emily shared her own pain, years of hiding, the weight of her mother's expectations. Sarah listened, her presence a quiet strength, occasionally squeezing Emily's hand under the table. By the time Diane left for her hotel, nothing was resolved, but something had shifted. I'll be back tomorrow, Diane said, her voice softer. If that's okay. That night, Emily lay awake beside Sarah. The city's hum outside their window. Do you think she'll ever accept us? Emily asked, her voice small. Sarah turned to her, her brown eyes steady in the dark. Maybe not fully, but she's trying. That's more than we had yesterday. Emily nodded, pulling Sarah close, their breaths sinking in the quiet. For the first time since the wedding, she felt a flicker of hope that their love could bridge even the widest gaps. Diane's visit stretched into a week, each day a fragile step toward understanding. Emily and Sarah took her to their favorite spots in San Francisco, the bustling ferry building, the quiet paths of Golden Gate Park, hoping the city's openness would soften her edges. Diane was polite but guarded, her questions about their life together sharp with curiosity and caution. One afternoon at a cafe overlooking the bay, Diane watched a young couple, two men laughing over coffee. Her lips tightened and Emily braced for a comment, but Diane only said, "It's different here." Emily nodded, unsure if it was judgment or observation. Sarah, ever the optimist, chimed in, "It's a place where people can be themselves." Diane didn't respond, but her silence felt less hostile than before. Back at the apartment, Emily showed Diane photos from their life together. Hiking in Yosemite, decorating their first Christmas tree, Sarah's art show where Emily had beamed with pride. Diane lingered on a photo of them laughing at a street fair, Sarah's arm around Emily's waist. "You look happy," Diane said, almost to herself. Emily's heart caught happiness was what she'd always wanted her mother to see, not shame. But the past wasn't easily buried. One evening, Diane brought up the wedding, her voice heavy. "I keep seeing Lily's face," she said. "She was crying because of you." Emily's chest tightened, guilt resurfacing. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she said. "I just wanted to be honest." Diane shook her head. "Honesty broke our family." Sarah, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "Hiding who we are was breaking Emily long before that day." Diane looked at her, startled, as if seeing Sarah's strength for the first time. The turning point came unexpectedly. Emily's school hosted a poetry reading, and she invited Diane, half expecting her to decline. To her surprise, Diane came, sitting stiffly in the auditorium as students read their work. One girl, a shy 15-year-old, read a poem about loving someone her parents didn't understand. The words, raw, trembling, hit Emily like a wave, and she saw Diane's hands clench in her lap. After the reading, Diane was quiet, but as they walked to the car, she said, "That girl. She reminded me of you." Emily stopped, her breath catching. "I just want you to be safe," Diane added, her voice breaking. "I don't want you to hurt like she did." For the first time, Emily saw her mother's anger for what it was. Fear, not hatred. She reached for Diane's hand, a gesture she hadn't dared since childhood. "I'm okay, Mom," she said. "Sarah makes me stronger." Diane didn't pull away, and though she didn't speak, her grip tightened, a silent acknowledgement. When Diane left for Ohio, she hugged Emily tightly, something she hadn't done since the wedding. "I'm not there yet," Diane said, her voice gruff. "But I'm trying." Sarah, standing nearby, gave a small smile, and Emily felt a weight lift. It wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was progress, a crack in the wall that had stood between them. Back in their routine, Emily and Sarah found new rhythm. They hosted a dinner for friends, their apartment filled with laughter and music, a stark contrast to the wedding's tension. Lily called, sharing news of her new life with Tom, and hinted at visiting soon. "I want to see you and Sarah," she said, her voice warm. Emily smiled, feeling the family she'd feared losing begin to stitch itself back together. But the world outside wasn't always kind. At a local bar one night, A stranger's comment, "You don't belong here," cut deep. A reminder of the battles they still faced. Sarah, usually quick to defuse tension, took Emily's hand and led her to the dance floor. "Let's make them uncomfortable," she whispered, her eyes mischievous. They danced, close and unapologetic, their love a quiet defiance. Emily laughed, her heart lighter, knowing they could face anything as long as they had each other. As spring bloomed in San Francisco, Emily felt a shift. The city, with its vibrant streets and open hearts, was home, but it was Sarah who made it whole. They planned a trip to Ohio for Lily's birthday, a chance to rebuild with her family. Emily wasn't naive. Diane's journey was far from over, and not everyone would accept them. But in Sarah's arms, under the city's endless sky, Emily knew they'd keep fighting together, for a world where their love wasn't a battle but a gift. The trip to Ohio loomed like a storm cloud. Emily and Sarah booked their flights, their hands clasped as they clicked confirm on the airline website. Returning to her hometown felt like walking into a lion's den, but Lily's birthday was a chance to mend what the wedding had broken. Spring in Ohio was soft and green, the air thick with the scent of lilacs. Emily's childhood home hadn't changed. The same white clapboard house, the same creaky porch swing. Diane greeted them at the door, her smile tight but present. Robert, as always, offered a quiet nod, his way of saying welcome. Lily rushed out, hugging Emily so fiercely it hurt, her laughter breaking the tension. "You're here," she said, then turned to Sarah, pulling her into the embrace. "Both of you." The first day was cautious, like navigating a minefield. Diane cooked a roast, her hands steady but her eyes darting to Emily and Sarah, who sat close at the dinner table. Conversation stayed safe. Lily's new job, Tom's promotion, until Diane asked, "How's San Francisco?" It was a small question, but Emily heard the effort behind it. "It's home," she said, glancing at Sarah. "We're happy there." Diane nodded, her lips pressed together, and Emily felt a flicker of hope. Lily's birthday party was at a local community center, filled with balloons and old friends. Emily braced for stares, but most guests were warm, asking about her teaching or Sarah's art. A few, though, whispered behind their hands, their eyes lingering on the couple. Sarah, sensing Emily's tension, squeezed her hand. "Ignore them," she murmured. "We're here for Lily." Emily nodded, but the whispers reminded her of the wedding, of the slap that still echoed in her dreams. The night took a turn when Diane pulled Emily aside. "I've been talking to Pastor John," she said, her voice low. Emily's stomach clenched. Pastor John was the voice of their conservative church, a man who'd preached against sinful lifestyles. "He says love is love," Diane continued, surprising Emily. "But he also says it's hard for people like me to understand. I'm trying, Emily. I don't want to lose you." Emily's eyes stung. "You won't," she said, her voice thick. "Just keep listening." The party ended with cake and laughter, Lily blowing out her candles as Tom cheered. Emily and Sarah danced to a slow song, their movements careful under Diane's watchful eyes. Later, Robert joined them on the porch, a beer in hand. "Your mom's been reading," he said gruffly. "Books about, you know. She's trying to get it." Emily's heart swelled. Her father's quiet support was a gift she hadn't expected. Back in San Francisco, Emily felt lighter, as if Ohio had loosened a knot in her chest. She and Sarah started planning a future, maybe a house, maybe a dog. But the world still pushed back. At school, a parent complained about Emily's lifestyle, questioning her influence on students. The principal, supportive but cautious, asked her to keep things professional. Emily nodded, but the words stung, a reminder that acceptance was a fight, not a given. Sarah, sensing her frustration, planned a surprise, a weekend getaway to Big Sur. They drove along the coast, the ocean glittering under the sun, and camped under the stars. Sitting by a campfire, Sarah took Emily's hand. "We're building something real," she said, her voice fierce. "No one can take that away." Emily kissed her, the crackle of the fire mingling with the crash of waves, and felt invincible. But reality waited. A call from Lily brought news. Diane had joined a church group for parents of LGBTQ kids. "She's asking questions," Lily said. "She's not perfect, but she's trying." Emily cried, relief and hope mixing with the pain of the past. She and Sarah decided to invite Diane to their apartment again, a chance to keep building. As summer approached, Emily felt the weight of their journey. Love was a choice, not just a feeling, a choice to fight, to forgive, to hope. She looked at Sarah, sketching at their kitchen table, and knew every battle was worth it. They were rewriting their story one brave step at a time, and Ohio was just the beginning. Summer in San Francisco brought fog and possibility. Emily and Sarah invited Diane for another visit, their apartment buzzing with nervous energy as they prepared. This time they planned a small gathering with friends, a chance to show Diane their world, not just their love, but the community that held them. Diane arrived with a suitcase and a hesitant smile, her eyes softer than before. She noticed the new art on the walls, Sarah's latest work, and complimented Ida's small gesture that felt monumental. The gathering was warm, friends sharing stories and laughter, and Diane listened, her usual reserve thawing. One friend, Mia, shared her own story of coming out, her voice steady but emotional. Diane's eyes glistened, and later she pulled Emily aside. "I didn't realize how many people go through this," she said. "I'm starting to see." The breakthrough came on the last day of Diane's visit. They walked along the Embarcadero, the bay sparkling under the sun. Diane stopped, looking out at the water. "I was wrong," she said, her voice steady. "Not just about the wedding, but about you. About Sarah. I thought I was protecting you, but I was pushing you away." Emily's breath caught, tears spilling over. Sarah, standing nearby, reached for her hand, and Diane didn't flinch. "I don't understand everything," Diane continued, "but I want to be part of your life. Both of you." Emily hugged her, sobbing, years of pain and hope colliding. Back in Ohio, Diane joined the church group regularly, even advocating for more inclusive sermons. Lily called often, sharing stories of Diane's small acts of courage, defending a gay couple at church, reading books about acceptance. Robert, too, softened, sending Emily photos of his garden with captions like, "Miss you." The family wasn't whole, not yet, but it was healing. Emily and Sarah's life grew fuller. They adopted a dog, a scruffy mutt named Luna, who bounded through their apartment, bringing chaos and joy. Emily faced the school's challenges head-on, supported by colleagues who valued her work. Sarah's art career flourished, her designs featured in a local gallery. They talked about marriage, not as a rush but a promise, a future they'd build together. One evening, under the city's twinkling lights, Emily proposed. On a rooftop overlooking the bay, with friends cheering and Luna barking, she knelt, holding a simple ring. "You're my home," she said, her voice breaking. Sarah, tears streaming, said yes, and the crowd erupted. Diane, watching via video call, clapped, her smile wide and genuine. The wedding was small, in a garden overlooking the Pacific, with Lily as maid of honor and Diane walking Emily down the aisle. Robert grilled burgers at the reception, his quiet pride a steady presence. The day wasn't perfect, some relatives stayed away, and whispers lingered, but it was theirs. Emily and Sarah danced, their love a beacon, a testament to every fight they'd won. Years later, Emily would look back on the slap at Lily's wedding as the moment everything changed. It was pain, yes, but also a spark, igniting a journey of courage and forgiveness. Their love had weathered judgment, fear, and silence, emerging stronger. As they sat on their porch, Luna at their feet, Emily knew they'd built more than a life, they'd built a legacy of love, one that would ripple beyond them, touching a world still learning to embrace it. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.